Hi, everybody. Thanks for coming today. Um, as Melanie said, this is the Freelancing 101 session. People become freelancers for different reasons, and we're going to talk about, what that means and how you can go about basically owning your own business as a freelancer. First, we have, let's go to the screen with our panelists. So today with us, we have Megan Maruzo. Megan is a relationship manager at Principal Wealth Partners. She has been working in the financial services industry since 1999, where she started at Prudential as a financial advisor. She's currently with Principal Wealth Partners, as I mentioned, which is an independent fee-only registered investment advisory firm, and they're headquartered in Madison, Connecticut. Her experience includes retirement planning, wealth management, knowledge of life, long-term care, property and casualty insurances, as well as disability. Principal Wealth Partners has had a great year. They've added 2 offices, one in Westport and the other in Old Saybrook. And their founder and CEO, Robert Paolucci, was named to the Forbes Best in State and Barron's Top 1,200 list of financial advisors. So that's a pretty impressive status. As a fiduciary, Principal Wealth Partners is obligated to always put the clients and their needs first ahead of anything else. And their mission really is to help clients in all aspects of their lives reach their desired outcomes through investment management, comprehensive financial planning, client education, and consistent communication. Megan has a bachelor's degree in economics and an MBA with a finance concentration, both from UConn. And she lives in Southington and is also on the board of directors for Bare Necessities, which is a charitable organization that provides diapers and wipes to the less fortunate families along the Connecticut shoreline. Our second presenter today is Kathy Nolan. Kathy is a senior graphic designer, art director with over 20 years of design, branding, and integrated marketing experience. She's freelanced for global advertising agencies and niche marketing firms, small businesses, and nonprofits. Her expertise includes concepting and executing design solutions for digital and print, advertising and marketing campaigns, brand development, identity systems, websites, and community outreach programs. Additionally, trade shows, retail point of sale, and promotional and shopper marketing programs. Kathy began her career in Los Angeles as an employee of DDB in LA. And there she gained valuable experience learning how to create a creative department in a large advertising agency works. And through the connections, she was able to branch out into freelance work. And in her words, she has been fortunate in maintaining a career as a self-employed designer and art director for the past 2 decades. She has an BFA in painting from UMass Dartmouth, College of Visual and Performing Arts, and she had trial majors in graphic design and printmaking. When she's not working with clients, she can be found in her painting studio, teaching art to children and honing her design skills through online learning. Some of her clients are Pedigree, Del Monte, Dannon, March of Dimes, the Meatball Place, some other restaurants, and the Children's Hospital of Los Angeles. And then next we have Bob Handelman. Bob is a photographer, and he helps clients share their amazing brand stories so that they can engage their customers with more captivating photos. He's based in Connecticut, but he shoots throughout New England, the United States, and the world. He loves shooting lifestyle and environmental portraits for advertising, design, corporate, education, and editorial clients. And Bob captures the spirit of his subjects to ensure the story is of interesting people in interesting places doing interesting things. He can tell the story with one hero shot or provide an entire curated image library, and he calls that Story 360. Bob blends a variety of photographic instincts, part director, photojournalist, fine artist, marketing guy, and shrink. He says, I observe, I listen, I engage, and I shoot. Bob likes to create order out of chaos while preserving some chaos for that creative spark. He seeks to craft scenes that look and feel genuine, a method he affectionately calls planned spontaneity. He achieves this through a mix of produced shots, sourcing serendipity, and improvisation. And then Bob says, above all, he dedicates himself to being as prepared as possible in order to be as present as possible and being cool knowing that things will change. This mindset empowers him to do whatever it takes to make each project a success and fun for everyone along the way. And with that, I am going to turn it over to Megan, who is going to give us a presentation about what we need to keep in mind financially as we go into freelancer owning our own business. Hi, Megan.
Thanks, Tracy. How you doing? I'm sorry for the lighting. Can you hear me okay?
We can.
Okay, good. There we go. Okay, so we're going to talk quickly about financial professionals you may run into, and Tracy and I talked about this. Some of this may be a little bit farther down the road, but some of the things I'm mentioning today, I just want you to keep in the back of your mind and be aware of. We're going to touch a little bit on budgeting, both on your personal life and your new business life. Talk about the importance of an emergency fund, debt reduction if you had it, debt avoidance if you don't, different insurance things you should be thinking about as you're starting out, what to do as far as your tax records, and also retirement plan options, which are really very important. When you're younger, it's, to think you're retiring at 67 or 70 seems like a lifetime away, but the earlier you start, and we beat this into people's heads, it's amazing what you'll build up over time, and it just gets you in that habit of thinking ahead and planning for it. There we go. Oops. Now it's jumping. So sorry. Okay. So some of the people that can be important to you, whether you're working for someone or you're on your own, is an accountant. First of all, you may not need that right now out of the gate. People sometimes kind of think, oh, I don't really want to pay someone, but from a tax perspective, they will normally save you more money than you're going to end up paying them. So they'll come into your life at some point, and it's important with all of these people we're talking about that you're comfortable talking to them. They should be like when you go to your doctor. If you get someone who's talks above your head or makes you feel like you're bothering them, move on. You are the client. They should be catering to you. So make sure you're comfortable with the folks. If you are setting up your own business or freelancing, you should talk to an attorney and decide how you should set your business up from a liability perspective. The accountant also comes in there as well from a tax perspective. We are not tax advisors. We understand how the tax laws work, and we work with accountants, but we do not give tax advice. We always refer people to a tax advisor. Down the bottom is an insurance agent. That's an important person. You should look into take a look at your personal insurance, make sure now that you're getting older that you have coverage that is really adequate. And on the business side, they will help you with professional liability type insurance. If you're not working for a firm and you're on your own, you want to make sure that you have that coverage. So find a good independent agent. They should be able to shop policies for you. They should sit and explain to you it's called a BOP, what a business policy entails and what it covers or doesn't cover, because insurance is boring and no one likes to pay it, but they all certainly like to have it when someone comes after you from a liability angle. You're going to work very hard to build up your assets And the last thing you want to have happen is have someone end up owning your business or your house. So take the time to investigate these things. They're not fun. They're not as cool as the stuff you guys do, but they're very, very important. At some point, you may work with a financial advisor. Initially, you can have one that might be a robo-advisor or someone on the phone. If you deal with one of the larger custodians like Fidelity or any, Schwab, somebody like that. If you're working for a firm and you sign up for their 401k, and they should have a plan person who comes out on a regular basis and offers to sit with the employees, sit with that person. Don't take advice from the person who sits next to you who made 45% last year. That sounds great, but talk to a professional. All of that advice is normally free and it will get you on track. So that's your team that at some point in your career, you're going to end up using all of them. Budgeting is really important. I sit with clients all the time, young, old. No one ever seems to have a really good handle on what they're spending a month. They might think they're spending $3,000 a month. When we get down to the nitty gritty, they're spending $45,000 or $5,000 a month. You need to really keep track for 2 months. I say to people is use your debit or your credit card for absolutely every single thing you buy, including a bottle of water, a cup of coffee. It's amazing when you take a look at it, how much you might be spending going to Dunkin' or Starbucks. And when it's $3 or $4, you don't think about it. If you go every day, it adds up to be a lot of money monthly. So think about things like that. Some people do it on paper, some people do it on spreadsheets. This is just a snapshot from the app Mint, which I have a couple of clients who swear by it. So there's a bunch of apps out there. Get a handle on what you're spending because it's going to be important. Also, if you're starting up your business, you need to really create a budget so you understand what you need to come in just to cover your basic expenses. Telephone, internet, insurance, all of those things. So take the time to sit down and really get into details on your budget. The emergency fund is probably the biggest and the hardest lesson that people learned during the pandemic. So much of the country lives paycheck to paycheck, whether the income just isn't there or they're tremendous spenders. And then all of a sudden, millions of people had no job and no emergency fund. We find folks who do freelance type work like yourself or seasonal type work are even better candidates for an emergency fund because you don't necessarily have that steady paycheck. You might have a big peak and then you might have a valley. So as a rule, you'll see people, the talking heads will say, keep 3 to 6 months. We say, yeah, that's okay. We tend to, as you have more liabilities, if you have kids, a house, debt, we will lean you more towards 12 months. But when you're first starting out, try and put 3 to 6 months away. And you want to put it just in something really liquid, like a checking account or a savings account. So you just have that cushion to fall back on in case something unexpected happens, your transmission falls out, or you have to buy some piece of equipment for your business. So it's very important. And you have to also remember that an emergency is something that's unexpected. It's not the commercial for Aruba on Sunday nights when we've all been trapped in the house for 15 months. So it's tough not to touch that money, but try not to because that really will become important. Debt management is another thing that we talk to people about. If you have credit cards right now, list them out, list out how much you owe, call up, find out what the interest rate is. We tend to find the store cards like Home Depot, Best Buy, Victoria's Secrets have killer interest rates, like way in the 20s a lot of times. If you have a regular Visa, MasterCard kind of card that has a high rate, but you're a good payer and you're consistently on time and you don't run up a big balance, call them up and tell them that and ask them to lower your rate. all they can say is no. Sometimes they say yes, and you're better off. Ideally, you want to pay the whole thing off, but life happens, and we all run up occasionally balances. So try and organize them, how much you owe, find out which has the worst interest rate, try and knock that one down. But meantime, you have to keep up. If you have multiple cards, make sure you're paying them all on time and leave them open. Be careful closing them. Sometimes people pay them off and then shut them off, and that actually hurts your credit score. So credit scores are becoming more and more important. For example, your auto policy premium is driven by your credit score. So if your credit score is good, you're going to get a better premium. If it's not so hot, you're going to pay more. So try and keep your debt to about 30% or lower of what your available credit is. And every year, you can go on to annualcreditreport.com and get a free copy of your credit report. It won't give you the score, but it will show you everything that they have on record. You can usually get the score if you have a credit card, like I know Wells Fargo, my Visa, all of them just give it to you right on the online account. But that credit report is important to get, because I happened to pull mine a couple of months ago, and Experian had me that I had taken out this small business loan. It turned out to be this whole fraud thing, and that was showing, and that had taken points off my credit score. So take 10 minutes, Google annual free credit report, and the site will pop up, and just take a look. Insurance is such exciting stuff. But health insurance is very important. I have this discussion with my 27-year-old son all the time, who's a nurse and is never going to die or get sick. I'm always on him to really research the health insurance he picks when he's switching agencies. Everybody's healthy right up until you're not. And those deductibles can come to haunt you. And again, that's where the emergency fund comes in. Hopefully you never get sick, but make sure you have health insurance. Check out the online, what's available through the state of Connecticut, and do some good research on, if you're with a firm, on what they offer. Disability, you may or may not have offered through your firm. Again, that's something down the road, keep in the back of your mind to definitely take advantage of if it's available, and you may need your own personal policy down the road. Commercial insurance, go to an independent agent, explain to them what you do if you're opening up your own business or freelancing, and they'll help you put together a package. E&O just stands for error and omissions. Sometimes it's built into the commercial policy, sometimes it's separate. That's if someone sues you because you've made a big mistake. Like, for example, I trade somebody and I buy the wrong security, so they think they're getting Amazon and I buy them some Amazon hotel. If they come back and sue me for what they've lost financially, that's where my error and omissions comes into play. So again,
Megan, I'm sorry to interrupt. Let's go quickly to taxes so we can.
I know I'm yapping too long. Okay,
let's go.
Sorry, taxes. Just make sure that you keep receipts, set up something as simple as a gigantic envelope, and every time you do something that you feel related to income taxes, shove it in the envelope. Be aware of filing estimated taxes if you have to. And then we're going to scoot. There's different types of retirement plans. I'm happy to talk to you. If you have a question, you may start with something like a Roth IRA and then move into a firm's 401k. So I'm going to stop talking. That's my contact information, and feel free to reach out and give me a call or an email. And thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Megan. And like she said, if you guys do have questions because you're starting out, go ahead and reach out. And, some of the last stuff, especially retirement, like Megan said, it's never, trust me, it's, your students, but time goes by very quickly. But what we want to transition to is talking about freelancing. And I introduced Kathy Nolan at the beginning of this session. And Kathy, I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about, what you think the pros and cons are about freelancing.
Hi, everybody. Thanks, Tracy. Thank you, AIGA Connecticut. Great to be here. I just want to echo what Megan said, because it goes into the pros and cons of freelancing in terms of even early on when I started, if you can hook up with a great accountant or a broker for your insurance, do that. It's, pretty early on. For example, my accountant, I loved him. I would ask him, should I get married? This guy has this much debt. I don't want it. So, I was consulting with him on things like that. And so I think it's important and not that overwhelming once you get somebody that you really trust and like to take care of stuff that as designers, we don't really necessarily have that brain. So let someone else help you out with that and, pay them a small amount. But so anyway, pros and cons of freelance, obviously the big pro is that you're your own boss, you're free, everything's flexible. You can pick and choose where you work, when you work, from where. And so for every pro, there's kind of a con that goes with that, because you're your own boss, but you need to be able to make yourself work a lot, all the time. The cons to being your own boss is that you have to wear a lot of hats. So you also have to take care of the business side of things. You have to be looking for work. So you're a salesperson for yourself. So that freedom of freelance is not always necessarily, well, I'm just going to work when I feel like it and not work when I don't feel like it. When you're not working, all you're thinking about is how to get more work and build relationships and get new clients. And, it takes a certain mentality to want to do that, to be able to do that, to like to do that. And it can be fun, it can be stressful, but again, back to what Megan was saying, if you build in to your practice these safety nets, especially financially, that when you aren't working, you'll have something to fall back on financially, then it won't be so stressful, and you'll be able to really navigate the freelance life pretty easily. So I would say pros are you're your own boss. Your career is designed by you. You can choose what kind of industry you want to work in. Are you going to be self-employed? Have like a small business where you go out and you get clients? I have some clients who are small business owners, but I started out working at an agency, an ad agency. So is that the kind of freelance you want to do, where you go into a marketing firm or a big agency and you're an extra set of hands? The creative director may say, all my people are busy. I need, an art director or graphic designer to fill this role for X amount of time. And you're that person. Is that what you want to do? Or do you want to have small business clients where you're a creative director? So your role is different for freelance. Or you can do both. I do both. So I think, we think a lot about going into freelance and the business and the financials and that kind of thing. But I think you need to really think about what it is you want to do as a freelancer, like how you can be helpful to someone who's going to call on you to go into their business and help them. So you're basically a helper. it's a flexible lifestyle. Again, when you build relationships and you have steady work, you can start to, have the flexibility of when you work, how often you work, are you part-time, because you have other obligations like children, or maybe you have health issues where you can't work all the time. There's that flexibility for freelance. You can work from anywhere if you're working for your own clients using your own studio. On the other flip side of that, if you're going into an agency, you can't work from anywhere. You have to be available to go into that agency. So, and that flexibility sometimes happens over time. So in the beginning, you may not be able to get the flexibility that you desire. You have to just put in the time. And that's okay, because I think as a freelancer, you want to get into your client's business, whether that's an agency or a small business owner or a corporate in-house agency. You want to get in there because you want to learn as much as possible about what they do and how you can fit in and where you can fit in. So I started out answering phones for DDB creative department, and I answered phones for a year, and then I moved my way into a creative assistant position for another year, and I learned everything there was to know about what every single person does in a creative department at a big ad agency. And I was not able to move in that agency into the creative department 100%. You kind of have to leave and then take that with you. And then those relationships you build at one place, you can kind of find freelance work outside of that place. Sometimes it's difficult when you start out because you're kind of pigeonholed into what people think you can do, and you need to break away from that to be able to move to the next level, if that makes sense. So if I'm answering phones in a creative department, they don't see me as an art director. They see me as someone who can pick up the slack in the studio, maybe do a couple of small business pitches, like helping out, presentations. So if I want to move up, sometimes you have to move out into the world. And that's how I became a freelancer. I wasn't able to move anymore in the agency world, in that agency. So I went out and started freelancing. And then from there, it just snowballed for me. So that's my path. So, people will call me and then refer me and then use me for another project. I was fortunate to have long-term freelance. So you can work for an agency for years. I freelanced for years, full-time freelance for years for agencies. You can have multiple clients that you juggle and have to service all your clients. So you have to be able to be, keep your schedules and understand that part of running a business. So there's that too. Freelance Pro.
Kathy, if I can, I think that would be a good point to chat with Bob about, what percentage of your time, and I introduced you in the beginning that you're a photographer, and so you own, your business. And, based on what Kathy's saying, I think you'd probably agree, how much time do you spend looking for work, actually doing the work, and then there's standard business operations as well. Can you tell us about that?
Thank you. I just want to point out, Kathy, I started DDB in Chicago, and your point's important. And to Tracy's point, I'm going to speak from a self-employed. I spent a couple of years at an ad agency, actually, on the account side. Learned a ton, and it was invaluable. And design and different the marketing world, as art directors, et cetera, having kind of permalance positions or lengths of time. I'm going to speak from being self-employed now for a long time. So in terms of and I want to thank you. It's great to be here. In terms of how days segmented between actual, when we say the work, the actual, working on behalf of clients, the paid work, then there's the work, which is to operate one's own business. And there's, a lot of other time consuming, important things, and a lot of things that appear urgent, and how one kind of navigates that. And I will say that, one of the aspects of, when I say freelancing, for me as a self-employed freelance photographer, I love being a freelancer because there's so much variety. And on, any given day, there can be, so many different things, and it's not really rote. And I think for creatives, that's helpful. On the flip side, I really value some routines, and this is about segmenting, one's time. So in my case, when I'm out on a shoot, I'm primarily a location photographer. It's maybe 12 to 15 hours a day where I'm exclusively focused on, for a day's shoot, that aspect of what's going on in my, in terms of the services I provide. And nothing gets done outside of, let's say, that particular being present for that shoot, unless, I'm going to come back to this, it's an automated or delegated aspect of running a business, because the business still needs to function. There needs to be some sort of interaction if there's engagement with clients or things need to be done. So being able to collaborate with others, that's important. If you have someone, you work with as an independent contractor or as a staff person, again, knowing you're at the early parts of your career, these are things to consider. So, on other days, or even weeks, there are times where there's no, I'm not actually out on an assignment. I'm in my photo studio, and there's post-production, pre-production, post-production, standard small business, tasks, and marketing myself. And so what I want to be specific about in a moment, as to how some of that breaks out, but I want to begin with you, and this is about mindset. And Kathy, had noted this. Really, 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 what's awesome about freelance is that you get to design your own life personally and professionally. And to do that effectively, you really got to start by being really honest with yourself. And what I mean by that is, what's your mindset? Are you knowing yourself? Are you a disciplined person with time management, or are you easily distracted? You have all day, all week, all month, and it's a blank canvas. So as a freelancer, you have this unstructured time, so you need to really use it wisely. Learn what your rhythms are. Are you a night owl? Are you a morning person? When are you most creative and in flow? And that would be the ideal time to do, the work, that which is the most creative, or what you're being hired for. When are you most energized? So those are the times where you may need to get through the most important things, may not be the most popular, and they shouldn't be the most urgent. Urgent are those things that are like fires that need to be put out. But if you are energized, get the most important things done first. When you have low energy, get the mindless tasks done that just need to get done. And I share this because having a balanced life, even though it's your career, you're going to be dedicated to it. 7 days a week for my entire freelance life, I always feel like I can and should be doing something for my career. And it's a blessing and a curse. I love what I do. It's not a job, as I would say. It's something that's my passion. And when I say work, I love it. But you need to be able to be disciplined while working, and then have your outside interests. And otherwise, it could become every day is Blur's day. I learned that term in the pandemic. It really fits. So setting some structure, and again, you'll find you need to be adaptable, but some structure. So when it comes to looking for work, again, depending on how many deadlines, or if I'm out on a project, I may spend no time. It could be up to 2 or 3 hours if I'm in a slower period. In terms of the things that others have referenced in terms of how to network, et cetera. And that's and I do want to emphasize that most of you will be marketing some sort of business or service as your job. You're paid to do this. That's your skill set in many cases, what your efforts will be going towards. Marketing oneself isn't always easy. I personally don't like it it's not something that comes easy to me. And I spend a lot of time saying, oh, I was, in advertising and, no, that will come easy. It takes effort and follow through. And that's where this discipline and intentionality that, again, some of the other presenters have mentioned, these are things that are super important. So when it comes to, the looking for work, it's very easy to be responding to external deadlines. A client needs something, but when it's, oh, I really should be doing this, this, and this, I can put it off because something came up or something's more interesting. So that's something that when I mentioned my long shoot days, even though I'm focused there, if I have good systems, and I'm going to briefly, touch upon that. If I have good systems, things can be automated. If it's social posts, I'm late to the game on this stuff, but I'm just, Creator Studio, Buffer, Hootsuite, ways in which one can automate social media posts. That's a great way. Even though I'm out earning on a shoot, I can still be spending time wisely, having chunked my time and scheduled and automated things previously. So actually doing the work, again, one day for me out on a shoot is typically about 2.5 days of actual business hours of time, because there's, again, pre-production, post-production, packing up, travel, shooting, file management, all that, all the stuff that goes into it. So there's a lot of extra work that goes, that's not just what would be per se the billable time. And so that is a variable, but it takes up a good deal of everyone's day, and you should organize oneself to, again, spend your best time and energy for given types of tasks. And then there's the standard business practices. This is way too much time. And what I mean by that is like, IT and troubleshooting and the new software upgrades, and it's not compatible with that OS and this and that. And those kinds of things, when you're wearing all the hats, it can consume a ton of time. At an ad agency, I had different people who could, you just snap a finger and things happen. Wearing all the hats, it is, can appear urgent, and certain things are, just, one link in the chain. If it's broken, that given workflow isn't working, you got to deal with it. But things like social, the social media engagement, professional development and honing skills, these are all things that aren't necessarily that which is billable, but you have to allow for time, and they can be just rabbit holes of time. So again, updating workflows, the financials and bookkeeping and bill paying, the IT troubleshooting, insurance, all those topics that have come up, they take time. So that takes too much time. There may be people, and this is where finding in financially responsible ways, if you can outsource certain tasks, do what you do best. I know in starting out that's hard, but that's something to keep in mind. As for like best practices and recommendations, I would offer from a kind of a development of your business mind frame, strive for a blend of clients if you can. If you're, again, self-employed, if you have some house accounts, may not be the biggest, most creative or the most rewarding financially, but if they're regular, you can begin to kind of have a steady stream of income, and as a freelancer, be able to kind of mark your time and manage your time better. So that some of your client base, then you may have the occasional clients, and then the one-off projects. And it, again, keeps things interesting. You can balance your time a little more when you have some of those house accounts.
I think, Bob, a lot of people actually are asking in the chat about, to you and Kathy, about time management. When you're working on your own, how do you make sure that you're using your time wisely?
Sure. Let me offer some best practices and some recommendations. So I would encourage you, like, do not reinvent the wheel. There are so many tried and true organizational systems out there. Ask around, talk to, peers, but also those who may be mentors or AIGA, different forums. There are so many different, and for example, having a calendar task management and CRM, contact relationship manager. Again, I could go through examples, and I'm going to post those that I use. There are so many really efficient ways of organizing one's day in terms of both task, and I'll just mention one right off here that I became acquainted with, Miro.com, Miro.com, and it has so many different templates of different organizational systems that you can just go play with. It's a free account to start out with, and it's all a virtual kind of whiteboard, but it is, I am like loving it. So that's, as for, again, baked into Apple, your calendar and contacts, and Google, Microsoft, they all have different tools. Even if you're not super organized or inclined to use them, start, because what happens is you start putting information in some place, you can't retrieve it. And then you have to update people's names lists. It's in multiple places. Which one was updated when they changed, addresses? So that's a big one. The automating of the tasks. Again, I mentioned social media is a good example. Are you clear on your objectives, and are you spending your best energies on those? Is it getting and being specific? I've only shockingly learned recently SMART goals versus goals. And, the idea of being specific and measurable and attainable and relevant and time-based, SMART goals really makes a difference, because I would say I want to make progress, but is that specific? Is it measurable? And so that's an important concept, and you'll find what works for you, but being as specific as possible. Creative cross-train, and that's something that keeps things interesting. I love spending time with, painters, screenwriters, designers, sculptors, chefs, architects, and people of different interests. That's a really useful way to be able to be inspired. But in terms of time management, again, ask them. You may find that there may be, again, organizational tools and how one chunks. And I'll kind of close here by saying that time blocking for unstructured time is a great tool. Again, there's lots of different techniques, and you'll find what works for you. Try something out, start, assess, adapt, modify it, but creating some routines. There's books on this, Tiny Habits, just creating some routines that help you organize the day, but being mindful of when you're best, again, most alert to do given types of tasks, because it will change.
And does anybody have some questions? We're going to open it up to people that want to ask Megan, Kathy, or Bob any questions.
Melissa had a question. Melissa, I think it will be easier for you to describe it than for us to read it.
Sure. So I formed a LLC back in February. Like, I did all of the official things. I paid the money to officially form an LLC with the state. And then I was also led to believe that I needed a sales and use tax permit, because I do a taxable good or service through freelance graphic design. But using all of the government state run websites is like really frustratingly hard. And
Yeah.
I also feel like I'm floundering. And so I guess my question is, like, is this on the right track? Is this what we should be doing when we try to like legitimize our freelance jobs, stuff like that, where it's like you're just kind of flown out into there and you don't know what you're doing? Is that a good first step? So
who wants to answer that?
Megan, do you?
Yeah, their websites are hideous. I would agree with you. I have clients who do the sales and use, but normally, like, they have it. I think you just should continue to report zero, but I would call them if you can actually get a human and just have a conversation, because even a lot of time with those, even if you don't file, they can sometimes on some of those types of things come back and fine you. So somebody else might have an LLC that can jump in here, but
I've always worked as a, not always, but as of late, sole proprietor. So I file I file that way. Probably not the best way to do it, but I've also been in partnerships. I can't really speak to that. I think when you get an accountant or someone who can help you when the tax time comes, can look at all this for you and say, do this, do that. If you're spending too much energy on that part of it, and you're, I think that's when you, to what Bob was saying, find somebody who can help you do that part of it, because that's taking like creative energy away from your business. So I usually just have somebody do it. Like, you pay them a small portion of what your annual income is to go through and tell you, these are your options for how you should set your business up, you know, how you should do your taxes and that kind of thing. So, I mean, maybe get help that way. And then
it can help you figure out like what you know,
yeah,
deductions and all that stuff.
right.
For offices space and
Right. I think
Yeah,
the
you have to-
importance of, and especially for young people getting into the freelance industry or freelance life, is to get out there and work and figure out how to get the work, whether it's, you know, on your own networking, using a placement agency to do temp work, going in and actually working full time for someone for a little while and then doing freelance, or, you know, you may have your clients already and building upon that, but get the work and see where it is that the work takes you and what it is that you like to do best. Because to what Bob was saying, as a freelancer, you wear a lot of hats, and that's on my pro list and on my cons list, right? So you can be anything from a creative director, a production person, a motion graphics person, and everything in between, until you find your niche and what it is that people are going to hire you for. You know, you want to figure out how to be desirable to the client, that they're going to come back and hire you over and over and over again. So you're not continually scrambling to find work when you don't have it, and that you're just doing all these one-off projects. So do you have a client that maybe the work, like Bob was saying, isn't fun and exciting and award-winning, but it helps pay the bills, it's steady, you don't have to stress about when the big project is done that you have some income. So I would focus on, as a young person coming up, if you're worried about how to set up your business, see if you can find an accountant to help you do that, and find work. Get out there and get the work. Try different things, reach out to different people. Yeah, that's what I would say. And on the con about wearing different hats is that you have to wear all those different hats, like being an accountant, being a salesperson, those kind of things. I mean, you have to make time for that, you know? But I would say the majority of your time starting out should be to work and to build relationships with people.
Yeah.
I just popped a link for the sales and use tax off the state website. So the frequently asked questions may give you a hand, but I would reach out to them.
Great, thank you. So I guess, do we have one quick question, or we can take a break before the next session? We really appreciate Megan, Kathy, and Bob. You guys were great. This is very informative.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you. Can I just say one more thing? I probably said it already. Just about being a freelancer, and how you interact with your clients. I know a lot of people do freelance, they're on their own, by themselves, in a bubble, working without any, you know, team or there's no work friends. Go to places like the Freelancers Union, join AIGA Connecticut, join Creative Huddle, make a group out of the people who are here in this room right now and connect, because it can get really lonely. And if you don't have people to bounce ideas off of or questions off of, you kind of feel like you hit a wall. So a lot of people work freelance independently on their own. A huge group of freelance people go into agencies and work. And there's also protocol of how to do that, like how you should be with a client when you go into an agency. It's important that you're professional, that you're, know what the client needs. So basically you're being called in by a creative director because they need your help. So you need to be able to seamlessly go in to an agency and figure out how they work there, figure out how they name their files. How can you be of help without being too much of a distraction, right? So if Tracy calls me in and she says, I have this huge project, I don't have time to do it. That means they don't really have time to show you too much. So if you can be that person who can be helpful and figure out processes that are in agencies and listen and learn how that client works, you're invaluable to them, because they're going to call a freelancer on the fly. They're not going to plan for you to come in and have a whole half a day for you to figure out how they work. Like, you have to be able to swoop in and be that whatever they need person.
Like a SWAT team.
They don't even know that you're there. And you leave at the end of the day and the work is done. And the work that you do can be handed off to somebody else. So you kind of have to check your ego at the door, because you may not be the person getting the awards, or you may not be getting the big, project at that agency. You're the person who's helping them get a job done that they need to. So, and it can be really fun, and you meet really great people, and you make a huge number of connections. And and that's how you get more work. So if you go into an agency and you can help somebody win that huge client, and they'll call you back, or they'll recommend you to somebody else, and that's huge. And then from there, you may find that you leave with your own client. Like, I got the March of Dimes through working at DDB, because it was a pro bono client for them and they just couldn't handle it anymore. So they're like, okay, you're on your own, you want to take this client. So, and like Bob said, meet people, artists, photographers, videographers, web designers, anybody else who you can hang out with is how you make connections. So
yes, that's really
and hit me up
great.
if you want to talk, if you want to, call, or I'll leave my information if you want to get deeper into that, how to get into agency work.
And so, do we have any questions, Tabitha? Did you have a question? You're on mute.
I'm a student, and I have on my own tried to get my abstract sold through Redbubble, Society6, Magnolia, and two of them were like, well, for your own work, yes, it's your own work, that's great, but we get 90%, you only get 10%. And I'm like, wait a second, for my own work, if I have to sell my artwork with you guys, I only get a little percent. And they ended up being very underhanded. And so I have not had success with getting my abstract art out there. Is there any way as my own person to be able to sell my abstract art, be able to be my own freelancer and still make money and still be able to do well with it?
Tabitha, you are you painting? You're doing abstract painting? Is that what you're talking about?
Yes. Well, not painting, but like abstract art through using different things.
Like mixed media?
Oil crayons, markers, stuff like that.
Yeah. So you're not service oriented. You're selling goods.
No.
So have you tried like Saatchi and Saatchi, Etsy, to put your work up there? Like get a storefront, I think would be the way to do that. But as somebody who is also in the fine arts world and married to someone in the fine arts world, 50-50 is usually the split. 90-10 is a little tough to swallow. I would walk away from that deal.
I did that.
And-
Yeah, I did that.
Yeah.
So I ended up doing it. I tried Magnolia. They never got back to me. So as a person with disabilities, it's just been very, very frustrating. And I've tried it on my own. So I'm just looking for new tools I can use to get myself out there.
So go Saatchi and Saatchi. I'll put that up there. Or Saatchi Creative. I'll find the link and I'll put it up there. They don't have a process by which you have to be juried into their website, but there's hundreds of thousands of artists on there. So it's how hard you work to promote yourself is, and that's anywhere, is basically where you'll see the reward. It's
Okay.
not an easy career. So, you know, what you're feeling is normal, and hook up with other artists and try to get out there maybe in the community. If you have like, if you're in Connecticut, there's different artist collectives, juried shows. There's websites for juried shows that you can enter and meet people that way, and curators and that kind of thing. But keep working. It's a lifetime of frustration. So
Yeah,
you're on the right path.
yeah, that is a good thing. I mean, I had a small break a couple days ago. Jamie Whiteline just got our abstract. I got our artwork on the Harvard Art School's website
Great.
for an
That's
exhibition.
huge.
That's the first step. But I'm just looking for more tools, more ways to be better, or to try to figure out what I need to fix on my own part, or what what people are looking for, or what I need to do to be better, or
Keep doing what you're doing. It's a lot of work, and it's lifelong.